Okay, we will reconvene.
Who should they talk to if they're really concerned about?
We're still on action items. We're now on item D, new committee to analyze Speak Up, Be Safe program. Jason.
Turn to the right page, and while I'm doing that, the background on this item is that we had a good discussion last time we were together about a proposed charge, as it were, for the subcommittee, and there were a lot of comments that came out of it, and we all agreed, well, let's spend a little more time trying to give a very direct and understandable mission for this committee. And then we also talked a little bit about the committee's makeup. So I don't want to spend a lot of time describing what everyone's read, but I do think it's worth highlighting the differences in what we saw before and what we have in front of us now. Background is the same. The committee formation purpose is essentially the same in that it has three parts. The first part is we'll consider exercising a 60-day termination clause in the agreement after the review of the program at the end of the school year. The contract itself is a 2-year contract, so to not extend it would mean terminating the contract. The changes really are in the second bullet point, which said, hey, here are the three things that we'd like the committee to look at. The three subdivisions are the same, but now they're broken out and made more specific based on the comments that were made by the board, which I've tried to reflect, but I don't, pretend to say it's perfect by any means. There's probably some room for conversation. In short, it's now called the Personal Safety Committee, and the three things that we look at are, and I think it's just worth reading, whether the subs curriculum strikes an age-appropriate balance, that being the theme for this, for instructing students about child sexual abuse prevention and related issues, being specific about those issues, including bullying, cyberbullying, sexual harassment, and technology safety. Those are the components of the program as SUB is advertised in its curriculum. By using appropriate language and examples, this is new language, and at appropriate grade levels. So I had the good fortune, and I know other board members have gone in the past, to the session that the Contra Costa Council puts together on the SUBS program on September 30th, and they use specific examples, and those come in part from the curriculum, but in part from their experience. And I think without going into those examples are worth the committee looking at, both to make sure they're appropriate in addressing sexual harassment and these other topics, and this question of which grade level, should all the grade levels be covered, and are they appropriate at the grade level? So that looks at the age-appropriate balance, defining that term. The second has the overlap with other programs. Think first, mandatory reporter training and other programs covering personal safety. We discussed those in the Venn diagram the first time we talked about it. There are all these different rules involved. Where this expands a little bit is the involvement of parents in this process and the extent to which the program should address situations in educational versus outside the school. We talked about that topic before. I've included the parents, and I think that one of the central issues that interest me about SUBS, and we talked about this from the beginning, is that I think one of the main impetus for the SUBS program was things that happened in other districts. And those things that happened in other districts happened in educational settings. They didn't happen outside the school. We talked about and learned from council how we have a responsibility to address things that happen outside of educational settings. My personal view, having reviewed the curriculum and listening to the examples, is that the curriculum focuses almost exclusively or generally on students building skills as they happen anywhere without a focus on school settings. And I think there needs to be a focus on school settings. And I think one of the assumptions, I think it's wise to use outsiders to come in and help do this. We have them with teachers in the room, even though teachers can be the subject of abuse, and yet one of the rationales for not having parents is not having parents because they can be subject to abuse. And I find that a little disbalanced. So that's what I mean about involving parents, because I think everyone should be involved in the dialogue. And then the final point is the same as it was before, continue or altering subs. And then finally, I made a stab on the bottom part of the content of the committee. There was a lot of discussion, and I don't think we really reached consensus on it, but I made a stab at it, which was expanding the number of teachers involved. So there's sort of a teacher-parent balance there, and then an involvement of a board member and a staff member. So there you go.
Well, Jason, I really appreciate your time and the thought. I know you put a lot into this, so I really appreciate that. This item's up for, I'll start. Rather than throw it out. I have some strong feelings about this. I really support the subs program, and I think the Child Abuse Prevention Council of Contra Costa, I think they do strike the appropriate balance, and I think they do a really, really good job of it. So I'm a big supporter of the program. And we have examples here in Orinda where we've had children that have benefited from the program and been able to report abuse in this district, in this city, I'm gonna say. So I support the program. It's important to me, so in the last paragraph that starts with the committee shall consist of, I don't know how it's gonna come to the board to make sure that the stakeholders represent diversity of viewpoints and experiences. And that's important to me because I don't want a stacked committee, whether it's for or against subs. No, we're not getting good information at that point. So I don't know how, obviously we can talk to Parents Club's leadership and say, we're looking for balance, although if we're just getting one parent from each school site, it's not like they get to put down a pro and a con, but if we share with Parents Club leadership the spirit of the group, maybe we get somebody who's neutral, or I don't know the best way to do that. So I think that's worthwhile. I don't know if you put any thought into that. And then I don't understand when teachers are on a committee like this, when the meetings are held, and if teachers are compensated. I've never really understood. Can you kind of fill in the gaps on that? A committee like this, when we ask teachers to serve, is it usually held after school hours and they're compensated, or during school hours when we hire subs, or I've never.
It kind of depends on the committee and the needs and how permanent it is and whether it's one time.
Okay. I've never understood that. Those are, I wish that we didn't have to talk to kids about child sexual abuse, so I get that it's a hard subject. And I know that we had in our district what I'm gonna call a false positive, and there was controversy around the way that was handled. And I know that's one of the reasons why we're talking about this right now. But I'm never in favor of forming a committee just to form a committee. I think that subs is a good program. At the same time, to get subs approved in this district, we came up with some conditions as a board, and I agreed to those conditions. So again, I support the 60-day, taking a look at the end of the year. I'm all for that. Let's evaluate the program. You kind of put it in writing. Hey, let's make sure we really have the talk. Forming a committee, I don't support that, but we are going to form a committee, so I think you did a good job on the composition of the committee. And it's like I said, it's important to me that we try and get a good, like you said, a balanced committee. And then just where we land with when the meetings would be held relative to teachers and impacts on their schedule. One of the reasons I'm not up for forming committees just to form committees is I don't like putting more stuff on teachers. I don't like pulling teachers out of classrooms and throwing subs in, and teachers do a ton for us after hours, and I'm always hesitant to ask teachers to do more. So those are my 3 cents. And most of all, I really appreciate your time and your thought on this. Thank you.
Is there still, is the La Orinda committee that was created still in existence, and does it still meet and review the program? It does. So this would be a layer on
But
top of
that committee doesn't, that committee has one parent, I don't remember if it has teachers. Does that committee have teachers from our district on it? Okay, there's actually a psychologist, she doesn't, okay, she's not a classroom teacher. So anyway, that's the difference with this.
On the diversity thing, Matt, I really appreciate that because, that is the purpose. I think it's important, from my viewpoint, if I keep hearing different community voices on it, and I think this is the type of topic where you want the community to have input and say on it. And so there should be a diversity of views on this, so that those views are heard. I also think of diversity in terms of experiences. One thing I witnessed in the session I attended, which Julie would appreciate, is that there were significant examples of sexual abuse, something that anyone who works in private setting knows there was all sorts of requirements on sexual abuse. And I'm for that because that's preparing kids for what they're going to face. And if we can address it earlier, maybe we won't have so much going on in college and in the workplace. But the examples they were using were employment law issues that the council aren't employment lawyers, and I'd appreciate an employment lawyer looking at issues like that was on here. So there's a diversity of experience. I'm thinking of those sort of things, bringing a viewpoint that otherwise we wouldn't have as a resource.
And as we're talking about it, the other thought there is that if we were to, as suggested, lay out the committee as you suggested, is that, I'd ask that whatever board member were to serve on the committee would certainly have their radar up as far as the committee members and their, what biases or experiences they bring to the table in their recommendation.
So I have some questions also and thoughts, if Matt's done. I had a couple of questions. Well, let me pick up on what he was talking about first, and then I have a couple of questions at the back. Regarding the staff meetings and after school or in school, I would assume that, that's going to be based on whatever's best for the group or teachers or whatever. And hopefully, I wasn't thinking there's going to be a lot of meetings. I don't know what you guys were thinking, but I'm thinking not a lot of meetings, so.
Did you have a thought on a number of meetings, Jason?
No, but I kind of agree with the sentiment. I don't think this takes up a lot.
Does that mean 2, or does that mean 1, or does that mean 4?
I'm thinking 2 or 3. You've got to have more than.
Yeah,
one.
it's more than one.
You definitely have to have more than one. You're just orienting everybody and getting oriented. But you definitely have to have 2. It could be 3. And by the way, the date's wrong. I don't know if anyone else knows that.
Oh, yeah,
Last
that was
paragraph.
my error.
Recommendation of the board no later than March 2016. Yeah, so at least 2 or 3, and I think the group has to kind of decide. But aside from that, the 4 teachers, so the program is 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 6th, right? So that's 1 from each grade level in the dress school sites, so we just leave it up to OEA to figure that out.
We had so many factors, yeah.
It's fine, I don't have an issue with it, I'm just clarifying. And then the one thing I want to say about nominating by each parents club, and I hadn't thought about what Matt brought up, so I'm glad you said that, about pro or against or whatever. I mean, I think it's important to have parents, because we have had a lot of, a lot of people don't say anything, but some people say strong feelings. So it's good to let parents weigh in. The one thing I was gonna say, which wasn't about pro or against the program or anything, was just about sometimes in the past, not currently, where I've seen Parents Club being asked to nominate someone, they nominate someone from the Parents Club board as opposed to like putting something in the e-news or whatever. Now, and sometimes parents are sort of resentful, that they didn't put it out there to the large group. I would have loved to have been on that committee, but they just chose someone they know or whatever. You hear that, I'm sure you guys hear that. So I don't know I'm not saying there's any right way to do it, but I think that it's more important that you get someone that cares about the issue than not. But Matt made a really good point. We don't want it to be all people for or against or something like that. So that should just be communicated, I think, to parents clubs and principals, just to, I think principals should be communicated to on this too, as far as setting up this committee, obviously, but
Do you think we should have principals nominate as opposed to parents clubs?
no, I didn't mean, well, that's a thought, I don't know, yeah, principals could nominate a parent as opposed to the parents club. I sort of didn't want to be saying which way is better, but what do you think, Matt?
I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. You
Or
throw out principals.
each principal could talk to their parent club leadership and discuss what they think makes sense. I don't have a strong feeling about it, I just don't want, I don't want people to feel like they just chose someone because they're on the exec board or something. That's the thing you don't want to have happen. You want it to feel like we put this out there, that we're starting this committee. If there's a parent interested, please contact the principal or parent club president and someone will be chosen. It's almost better that people don't know who's choosing, you know, because otherwise if you have, say you have 3 parents at one school that all want to do it and you're choosing one, the rest of them feel left out of it, you know. So maybe the principals are better off dealing with it, I don't know. I think we leave that up to the principals and the parent club. But it should be, I like your idea about 1 from the school and 4 teachers, and that's 9, and then you have the board member. I like your wording where the board member is not voting but a participant. I like that. Thank you for coming up with that, non-voting board member. The only other thing I wanted to ask about was up above, where it says overlap of the program, the B, item B, which since I'm seeing this A, B, C, it sort of makes more emphasis on that. I'm not sure what, I assume you're just saying, well, we do some things and think first are sort of related, but I mean, I don't think that think first could replace what we're doing in subs. I do think there's value to addressing the issues that we have in subs. I'm thinking this is more about, do we like this curriculum or would we want to have a different curriculum? I don't think that anyone's thinking that we would assume that Think First is completely adequate all by itself for dealing with all these issues. Is that what you mean, Jason, or no?
You know, I think maybe a better word than overlap is alignment. There is overlap, but where I think that's coming from is that there is overlap in what it's addressing, what these programs are addressing. Think First, mandatory training, and subs. Different people are doing it, and are those properly aligned, and are the right things being addressed in the right program? That's the way I
thought
see
they
it.
were doing some efforts to align language, for example, in the programs. Is that correct?
They might be. So this B is more talking about how is it overlapped and are we making an effort to make sure we're using the same wording and all that, right? It's not, I mean, okay, I just want to make sure.
Pardon me for interrupting.
Sure.
I think what this item B is addressing Jason's Venn diagram that he presented. And it was sort of like an overview of what the district does or should be doing to completely address child safety.
Okay.
So there is sexual abuse, there is harassment, and there is of all kinds, harassment of all kinds, and there is mandated reporters. So, for instance, if Jason was referring earlier to, we did this program as a result of something that happened in another district. The failure in that district was inadequate and improper mandated reporting, which resulted in no action on a serious event. So all of those things coalesce to address the district's responsibility to keep children safe.
Okay. Yeah,
And I
that's
think
fine,
that-
and I like the fact that you have mandated reporter training written here, because we didn't have that as so much strongly a part of, I mean, that wasn't really related to the subs curriculum, but it's important to know what are addressed to teachers in that, and how does that carry over to subs, so, yeah.
Jason, I really appreciate the time you put in. I do agree, more on the math side, that I'm happy with the subs program, and I agree that creating a big committee with a lot of people on it seems, I don't know, to me, it doesn't seem like something necessary for this particular program, because, and I guess one of my concerns is on that letter A, because how do you perceive this group of non-experts, other than the teachers who might have been sitting through the program, who might have more expertise on it, but this group of parents and teachers being able to just basically review, they're not gonna be sitting in on the program to see really how it's being presented. I mean, the teachers might, but the parents probably aren't, because they're not supposed to be, right? And how do you perceive them then being able to look at the materials and determine, as non-experts, whether this material is age appropriate? I mean, isn't that what the lumbering committee does? Isn't that what the subs group does already? You know, so what are we adding to that? And do we
Well, they're
have
only-
the expertise to do that when we have these experts who are supposedly doing that already?
Oh, I know what it is. Well,
And
after
parents
that,
have
more of a
expertise
lawsuit, what
and
went back to the
perspective
share
to
the
add on
same
what they think is
sex
appropriate for
program
their kids
instructors and
to
then
be exposed to.
Okay.
And while we have a certain level of responsibility for.
But are they really
exposing
gonna
kids-
know just based on a brochure that says this is what they're teaching at this grade level? I mean, I could read, I read it for my child last year for third grade.
I mean, I think they're gonna have to do more than, it is asking
I'm
something
just
to be
wondering,
done.
like, how,
No,
like,
it's-
what information are they going to have access to that's going to give them?
I would think that the parents would actually be reading it.
Yeah.
It's called
Because they're not allowed to
connectory.
which
This one,
I
use it, play around
find
with it.
problematic,
Connectory.
but they would be reading the curriculum, actually reading the dialogue as it's presented to the children, instead of showing it just says between analysis.
And getting educated on it. I mean, the experience of the meeting the other night is there were 3 parents who had questions about the program. And what I found interesting was one of them afterward, two talked about, oh, there's a committee, I'm interested, so talk to your parents club. One, by being exposed to the curriculum, felt it was something different than they had understood before. So I think it'd be interesting to see what parents, you know, what parents come out of this. But I do think parents have an expertise. It'd be nice to have a parent with expertise in employment law and other expertise they bring that are professional. But even when they don't, the parent has an expertise in informing their child.
Yeah, I wanted to say something too about that they aren't, the committee is not gonna make a decision.
I'll send you
It's
an email.
with the recommendation to the board.
Right.
But yeah, you're saying,
Informed.
yeah. But about the informing, I'm assuming that the committee or the staff person is going to, email the link to the curriculum, as you said, but also I would think they would give them some information about, what we're required about sexual harassment or whatever board policy that we have, and also the mandated reporter training. And also, one more thing, if we really want these parents to be informed, we're talking about 4 or 5 parents all together, and they're gonna be at different grade levels, why not allow them to attend one, sit in the back at a, speak up and be safe session where someone's teaching the class, so that they can come knowing what it's, this is what it is. It's a thought, I'm just throwing it out there because you said they want that going. Not to muddy it, and I don't wanna make this bigger and more difficult, I'm just trying to say, I think if a parent's interested, they're going to inform themselves. They're
I
going to.
understand, I'm not saying I'm not saying we all live in little bubbles that we can't decide what's best for our child. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, to say, strikes an age appropriate balance for instructing students, I mean, I'm a little more sophisticated third grader than another person, and my standard might be different. I mean, if you're gonna have one person's perspective on it, I'm just saying, it's difficult to really come up with something that, I don't know, I guess my point is that this is sort of the reason that you have these experts trying to create a curriculum that's age appropriate.
Right,
And we're
but if you
switching that burden to,
No, you're giving the community an opportunity to provide feedback on that curriculum, which is different than having a public meeting where you're told what the curriculum is and giving some examples.
But also, if you're concerned about these parents aren't really informed enough and aren't experts enough, there could be less parents, that's what we were talking about last time, right? Proposed 4 parents, 4 teachers, and everyone
Jason said,
said.
good job of getting an odd number.
Yeah, well, that's
that includes representation from everywhere. And I
Yeah.
think that was the challenge, and you've done a good job of
Yeah,
trying to
you did
come
a
up
good
with
job
that.
of coming up with a solution, but I'm
You
saying,
know,
because you're questioning
can't
the
do that
parent
page
part of it.
first. Yeah, I get what you're doing. so.
But Julie, since you're questioning the parent piece of it, and the parents aren't as informed, if you had less parents, they have less influence on the committees. I mean, if that's your real concern, you could go back to, okay, 4 parents, you know. I'd rather do that than say, well,
Well, can I switch
you shouldn't have
gears
this,
for
or
one
you should
moment?
only have 2 meetings, or whatever.
And then top of the page, was it and mandated reporter training? I get why you have it under B,
Yeah,
but I didn't really understand why it was up there under A, because I thought not A, in that first, number 2 paragraph, it starts on the prior page, because you're talking about, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but you were talking about, so that students will acquire the skills and techniques needed and to meet state requirements in regards to child sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and mandated. So I didn't know if you meant state requirements related to children teaching students about mandated reporting training, which it seemed like you wouldn't want that in there.
No,
Which
I was
Or if
trying,
you were just trying to
paragraph
be,
is she talking about?
you know what I'm saying?
yeah, under 2, you know what I was trying to do? I was trying to create a frame around the below that we have to meet the requirements.
Like, I get why you have it under B.
Yeah.
It makes sense there. I
Yeah.
just didn't know if it made sense to include the mandated reporter training when you're talking about student education, because it's not really a piece that we're educating the students about,
Mhm.
right? They're not mandated reporters.
Right. All I was trying to do was create the frame of saying we have to be consistent with the law for that, but I know what you're saying. I'm trying to-
So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like I didn't really.
So I know we have more to discuss, but can I take this in public comment now? I know we've got parents club leadership here, and we've got teachers here, so. I'm gonna open this item up for public comment.
If you want, yeah.
Renee, President. Charles Shannon, I've been listening to the discussion. It's been a rich discussion. I just want to say that I appreciate, Matt, you saying that, another committee is, it's taxing on a teacher's time. I think at best, teachers want to be able to provide feedback and know that that feedback is going to go directly to every one of the board members. So you can consider that during a public meeting like this. You can share your thoughts on that feedback that you've read from teachers. So if anything, there should be a survey that's easily accessible, that teachers can give feedback if need be. But there are so many committees and trainings and such that, Matt, I really would appreciate that from you. Sometimes I think we over-committee ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments on this item? Yasmin?
Do I have comments?
Please.
No.
Hi, Meredith Friedman, hi.
Meredith?
I feel like I should say something because I spoke about this last month. And I guess what I would just like to contribute is that I also attended the parent ed meeting at the end of the month. And I just wanted to say that as a person who does have concerns about the program, I was very pleasantly surprised by what I saw. And what I saw was that the program has adapted in the last few years in response to that feedback. So, I really appreciate all of the time and effort that's going into this, and that the coming up with a solution may be challenging, but I still do feel as a parent that there may be shifts in the program that could take place. I also feel optimistic that the folks who run the program are interested in hearing that feedback. So if there's a way to provide it, and I totally hear what you're saying, though, it's hard. How are the parents finding out about the curriculum? I don't know if it's possible to even record some sessions since parents can't be in, but then it's a whole privacy thing. I don't know. I'm no expert. I'd like to be part of the committee. I'm no expert, right? But I do feel like, the concern that would the committee be stacked for or against, I'd like to think that we're reasonable people in this town, and that you get people with genuine concerns who want a genuine, productive response. We're not all rational, are we? I provided some humor. Anyway, no, I will not bring up sugar. But I'd like to think that there's so much good in this program, and there's so much that's important. And I'd like to think that the people who do have some concerns want those concerns to be handled in a productive way that gets everybody what they need. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from the public on this item? Okay, we are back to the board. Carol, I haven't heard you say much, so I am interested in hearing what you have to say, but as well, I'll just say that I am hearing some consensus on the board, so I think we're moving in the right direction, but Carol, you've been relatively silent, so I think you're the answer.
Well, I just know that the board voted to approve the contract on the commission that we have. There's sort of discussion in a committee about the program and our overall ability to keep children safe. And so I almost don't know why we're even having this discussion. Last time it was, let's bring the proposal back to the board with a little bit more definitive charge for the committee. That the committee was the condition of approval.
Are you comfortable with how it's laid out here?
I am.
Great.
I am. One of the things that I most appreciate is the inclusion of the mandated reporter component. I think there's much to discuss there. I also very much appreciate the involvement of the parents' part. And just all kinds of considerations there. Should a parent be able to sit in on this? So I like this charge very much.
Jason, what do you think about, we heard public comment that some teachers in the past have felt committee to death. What do you think about not having teachers on the committee, or having fewer teachers on the committee, or? I think teachers are an important part of the committee, but I'm also not comfortable asking teachers to put more.
And I want to say that I do think we could get very good and probably better information from survey of teachers.
I loved the survey idea.
You know, I mean, there was a survey, but the information didn't go to us. And
Right.
We talked
And
about
that
that
was
last
one of
year,
the-
so we could modify it so that it is coming directly to the district and presented to the board rather than going, off-site sort of.
Well, I also remember that at the last meeting, Catherine Palmer
Right.
Collins, I believe, said there really needs to be teachers on this
Well, I don't think you
committee.
can make a committee without any teacher.
Yeah.
But the last
I
time,
agree
I do
with
have
that.
to say, last time we had fewer teachers, and the public comment we got was to add more teachers.
Yeah.
But I completely appreciate the comment. I don't
Well,
want to
wonder,
over-teacher and put too many. I want it in the spirit of the earlier
Well, there's the
comment.
different grades and everyone,
That we're creating community and conversation here that allows people to get together so that we're not having, that can be sifted and brought to the board. So I'm really sensitive to that comment, and I love the idea of the survey, that the teachers are willing to do that. And maybe fewer meetings for the group, because they're gonna be able to get that information, meet briefly a couple of times, few times, and sift it. Maybe that's a direction for the charge
I'm comfortable with
for
that.
the board.
Yeah, I think did you just say do include the teachers? Because I do remember hearing last time that we should
Yeah,
include teachers.
I'm a little lost on the number of teachers now, because.
Well, and I have to say, last time we weren't talking about funding, so I can't help but think that, is it possible that the comment made had to do with, that's gonna cost us to have teachers on the committee? I don't know if there's a way that's less expensive, whether it's during the day or after school, or maybe we have less teachers
either way, it
or
would cost money,
less
right?
meetings. Yeah, either way, it could cost money, but
No,
I
it
think
will
we
cost
have
money,
to.
not it could.
Either way, it will cost money. I think we have to have some teachers on the committee. It's a matter of, do we have 2 or 4 or something, or 2 or 3 or 4, right? Or do we have less meetings? If you only had 2 meetings, you had a survey that went out to all teachers, which I think makes a lot of sense. Or actually, would it be all teachers or all teachers
First,
in
third, fifth,
those
and
grades?
sixth.
Yeah, all teachers that teach those grade levels. Who's gonna make up the survey?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have 1 meeting and have the committee, have someone draft a survey, approve it at the first meeting, with revisions based on the committee, sorry to get into this, but, you know, then you could have, maybe one more meeting is all you need.
If there's already a teacher survey out there, why don't you just look at that and see if that meets our needs?
About subs, I don't know that there's already a teacher sub.
Wasn't there a survey that went out
about
last year?
subs
Yes,
for
there-
all the teachers in those grades levels?
There's a sub-annual since we've been with the program.
So is this year's sub-program questionnaire hasn't happened yet, I take it? Right.
But
So
you
that
have the
would be
one
an
from
opportunity.
last year, and it went to all the teachers who taught those grade levels.
Yes, where the program took place, yes.
Okay. Well, then if you shared all the data with the committees, that could suffice, and we could discuss that at the first meeting.
So it seems like we have consensus. Jason, again, I think you did great work. I think we're at 5 parents, 4 teachers, a board rep, and an OUSD staff member.
5 parents, 4 teachers.
Are there, anybody else have thoughts?
No, but I think we need to appoint our board member, don't we? As part of
Well,
this.
first we have to vote on this.
Yeah, well, I think we need to vote on it and appoint our board member. Is it 2 separate motions? I'm happy with it the way you just stated it.
Okay, good. Okay. That's by name? Okay. So let's talk about who's going to represent the board on the committee.
What?
5 meetings?
I just wanted to bring up that based on the experience when we were with EBK, we thought we could do it in 2 meetings. Maybe bring a group together and look at this level of research. There's,
I think the first meeting is.
I see a minimum of 5 meetings, I just wanted to be transparent.
Thank you. I
about that.
appreciate you. Thanks for speaking up on that.
And given that, can you send them information ahead of time, or do you think that's not wise? I mean, so that like the curriculum and that kind of thing, send them the link in advance, or do you think it's better not to do
The
that?
curriculum is available now to everybody on the website, it's just in what we're trying to accomplish here, it takes those
5 meetings.
discussions and the research in between meetings.
Okay.
Thank you. So let's talk about who from the board would like to serve on the committee. Who on the board would like to serve on the committee?
I think Carol should
Carol?
serve.
Okay. Is everybody comfortable with Carol serving on the committee?
I think that
I
would
am,
be
because I know Carol has a certain perspective on it. But I do, but I think I can be fair, and I'm sure you could be. I would just.
Carol, you can say you will be.
And you're gonna report back to us.
I would just like,
of course.
you know, just as we talked about,
That's fair.
you know, having neutrality, I mean, I would like people to be looking at this with an unbiased eye, I guess. I mean, I know you were very passionate about it, so.
I have some opinions about the program that I would be here as a guide, not as,
An advocate for one position?
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I
concerned about many different sides of the whole thing, so I think I could present all those sides.
Yeah, and I think that's why it was important that you work through this writing here, the charge of the committee and what the task is. So Carol is there to make sure that we stay on task and make sure that these issues get addressed in an unbiased way and bring us back feedback from the committee.
It seems like we have support for Carol to serve as the board member. So can I have a motion?
I move that we form and approve the new committee, Begin When I Speak Up and Be Safe, with Carol as the board member who will be a non-voting member of the committee.
Participate.
Participate.
I'm in a second. And I just briefly just want to say, although I know we're putting more meetings on teachers, I know we're also putting more meetings on staff. And I'm sensitive to that as well. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
And abstain. Okay, 4-1, thank you.
Not because of you. Pardon? Not because of you, it's yours.
Notice of completion and acceptance of new district offices. Stuart House.
I'm here again this evening to request board approval for a notice of completion and the acceptance of the district office building. Almost 11 and a half years ago, district and Pulte Home Corporation entered into an agreement for the sale and purchase of the property upon which the district office is sitting. Subsequently, on March 11, 2009, an agreement, a tenant improvement agreement, set forth the obligations for the completion and acceptance of the building, and payment of an outstanding amount owed to Pulte Home Corporation for $1,689,440. The district withheld payment contingent on the completion of a number of punch list items. Some of those items were completed over the last 2 years, and over the last 2 weeks. The last item on the list, the repair of a dysfunctional HVAC system, was done, including work with what's called bypass dampers on the roof and in the system, and creating new louvered openings. They do a lot of work, the engineers in here, to redesign the system so it could be functional. We've had an opportunity over the last several days to experience the system and now believe that it is functioning normally. So the board is requested to approve a notice of completion, accept the building, and to disperse the balance of funds owed to Pulte Home Corporation in the amount of almost $1.7 million. So that's the request. There is included in your packet the letter from Pulte Homes, breakout of the costs that resulted in that amount, and a notice of completion, which I will file with your approval of this notice of acceptance, with your acceptance of the building.
Thank you, Stuart. Questions from the board?
Stuart, I'm assuming because you're presenting this that you're satisfied that the repairs aren't actually working now?
Yes.
Okay, that's my only question.
I was gonna ask the same thing.
Anything else on the board?
I just want to say that
Yeah.
I'm actually happy that it came in a little bit below what the guaranteed maximum was when we finally came
Right.
around all these years later to actually approving it, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. And I wanna say I had to read that first sentence 3 times before I realized it said 2004, not 14.
Right.
So, yeah, it's been a long, long process since we started before any of us were on the board. Just one question on the funding, where it says Fund 40 has been holding this. So these funds then will be paid out of that.
Correct.
And,
It will reduce our sizable Fund 40,
yeah,
but we will get this off our books and move on.
Any public comment on this item?
Charles Shannon, your president, I just want to say, I remember the days when I first came to the district, getting in that tiny little, room. There was always seemed like there was a post in the way. But this is a much more comfortable space. It's very usable. We've had a lot of meetings here. I think we're all really happy with the results, and there was a lot of hard work to get to this point. And I appreciate all the years and numerous people that worked on this project, but it's a great place to come and do the work that needs to be done. So thanks to all.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? This is back to the board.
I move that we approve action item E, notice of completion and acceptance of the new district offices.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Item F, board policy 5111, admission and administrative reg 5111.1, district residency. Teresa Sidgwick.
Board policy 5111 and administrative regulation 5111.1 are being presented as a second reading. There were no revisions to the first reading. This board policy and administrative regulation addresses the district residency of students and an investigative process in defining residency. These new laws come into effect on January 1st, and we're being proactive with approving these new board policy and administrative regulation in time for those changes on January 1st.
Thanks, Teresa. I appreciate you being proactive on getting in front of this right away. Stay ahead of the curve on this one. Any questions from the board on this item?
I guess I have just one comment that turns into a question. The comment is talking about getting ahead of the curve, that a lot of time was spent on this regulation last year, and that the changes of the law actually made only two pretty minor changes. Well, one new topic, and that is the use of investigators, and then a change in the way district residency is defined for this very narrow purpose. When you look at what's that?
Now you can have two places.
You can have two places of residency for the purpose of being a school district. Those are the two changes. I think when you look at them, there's a lot of underlining, which makes it sound like there's a lot more, but really the big reason for that is this decision to take what's in the regulation and copy and put it in the policy. And I think that was mentioned before, Matt, why to do that, but could you revisit telling me why we have to sort of repeat it both in the policy and in the regulation? Whereas in the original draft, we didn't. That's the biggest change here. The most underlining is simply information that was already in the reg moved over, adding these two things. And maybe that's a lawyer question.
The lawyer was involved in this process,
Yeah.
and it was more or less to be thorough.
Okay.
And
Can you,
Joe.
Joe, is there?
So, the original piece of legislation required a board policy.
And we had put it in the regulation.
Yes, and so we were headed down that pathway of the regulation, and then I discovered when I read this that, really does. So Vicki makes it, thank you, and change it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board on this item? Any public comment on this item? Send us back to the board for action.
Well, one thing I noticed is the date at the end says September 15th, but today's October, so I assume you would update the date at the end on both of the items, the board policy and the regulation. I think that's because it was on last time.
Right.
Oh, they do it, they automatically, okay. I just noticed that.
This item's on for action.
I move we adopt action item F, board policy 5111.
And the administrative regulation.
And the administrative regulation 5111.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed or abstained? Unanimous. We're on to discussion items. Item A, board policy 4121, temporary substitute personnel. Teresa.
Board policy 4121 is new to Orinda's board policies. Does not exist, so that's why you see the whole entire item underlined. Why it was being brought forward was because of the new requirement of AB 1522. So the policy existed, but there's a new change. But since Orinda did not have this in their board policies, the whole entire thing is new to Orinda. AB 1522 is in response to a new law that came into effect July 1st, allowing substitutes to have sick leave. And there was two options. One option was the substitutes would accrue sick leave based on that time that they work, or you could do another option where you just give them the 3 days regardless of how much time they worked. The district is opting for an accrual basis where 1 hour of paid sick leave for every 30 hours worked, and that you can accumulate, but you could only carry over up to the 48 hours or 6 days. This is to be in compliance with the availability of sick leave to temporary and substitute staff. Temporary and substitute staff are not included in our bargaining unit. So a lot of the wording in here is in relation to that because they're not covered under the collective bargaining. And basically that was it. It was more or less addressing the sick leave for substitutes and temporary staff.
And this is the first reading, and it'll come back to us for action.
That's correct.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Just a couple of questions. So this new law, AB 1522, I understand this is updating this policy. Does it apply to anything else? Any other of our policies? Or is it only applied to this? Or do you know?
It's only, this AB 1522 is only in relation to substitutes and temporary staff. Other sick leave is addressed in our collective bargaining units contracts.
Okay, and just to clarify where you say it includes temporary and substitute. So temporary, I'm kind of trying to remember what is a temporary that applies to. It sounds like is that a long-term sub, or what is a temporary employee that's not a sub? It's not an instructional assistant, right? They're covered. Maybe it's just temporary teachers or some other type. Okay, but I just wanted to clarify, this doesn't include instructional assistants, this is just employees who are substitutes. It doesn't matter if they're in a union or not. Well, this is only if they're not in a union. Is that
It
right?
applies to the category of employees listed.
Yeah.
Teresa, is this language from CSBA or just helping the law?
Yes, that's from the CSB.
From
I have one question on the first page, right below where it says post-retirement employment. It says permanent or probationary certificated employees who are laid off and who have a preferred right of reappointment shall be given priority. I know this is just from the language, it's the law. I'm just wondering, like, who has a preferred right of reappointment? Is that just within a certain time period of them
And it's
being laid off?
education code is
Very just lays out, like.
very laid out in the education code when it comes to.
And then the other thing on page 364, the middle paragraph, where it starts, no employee shall be denied. So if you go, this is maybe a typo? I read it a couple times, and I think it is. Where it says provide notice to eligible employees, do you see that line? It's like 3 up from the bottom of that paragraph. Provide notice to eligible employees of their sick leave rights, keep of records.
Keeping.
Shouldn't be in there.
Keeping of records.
Keep records of employees use,
Okay.
not keep of records of employees use.
Okay,
Keep that as a note.
thank you.
I don't know if that's in the CSBA one or not. Did you fix it?
Thank you.
That-
Any comments from the public on this? Is that for information only? Anything else from the board on this?
Can I ask one question to Joe?
Discussion,
In,
sorry.
in loco council, place of council?
We're loco.
Crazy council. We all have. I hadn't noticed before. I read the policy, but we do have a current regulation on temporary substitute personnel. I haven't heard them, I haven't looked. I assume we don't have to change that when we change this. Council has looked at that. Okay.
Harkens back to Sarah's question. Right? About whether we have.
We do have
Well, she was
Your
saying
question was
whether it
whether
affects
there were
other-
other policies
Yeah.
that might be
Policies
impacted
that
or
are-
regs.
There's actually a
What you're just
regulation
saying.
on this topic, temporary substitute teachers,
Oh,
that
we
has a
have a
higher.
regulation, but we don't have a board policy?
Exactly, and there's no
Okay.
inconsistency, I
Now I
think,
got it.
between the two.
Thank you.
Item B is electronic school board meetings, Dr. Jack Net.
Okay, so the board has been,
Thanks, Teresa.
how many years is it?
But not since 2004.
Not since 2004.
No, practically no.
So we have gotten around to
In the grand scheme.
heard the presentation, a special meeting by CSBA. We had the opportunity to consider at least one electronic school board system. And this item is being presented to you so that you can discuss that, as well as any other potential electronic systems that you want to consider in the future, and or give us direction in terms of what your thoughts are as to which way you'd like to proceed, either with the one reviewed or the future ones that you're interested in. So there's information that's been provided to you on pros and cons of these systems and financial considerations. Really, it's an opportunity for you to talk about it as a board, as to how you feel. Progress.
So I had an opportunity to talk to Kathy, and because I think this is going to impact Kathy more than anybody else, so I think her opinion is most valuable. And I'll just speak for Kathy, because she asked me to. Kathy definitely thinks we're going to move to some form of electronic, we need to get into the 20th century on this one. But she also feels like it's important that we take a look at board docs, that we do our due diligence on that one, and that she and the board and superintendent have an opportunity to look to see what the other major vendor, what their product looks like. So that's kind of a summation, and then the only other thing to add that I think does kind of fill in the lines a little bit is that moving over to this is a lot of work, and we should be sensitive to the work going around superintendent search and the impacts that has on staff while we're also looking at this. So I'm not saying we slow this thing down, but I just want everybody to be conscious of that there's a lot on Kathy's plate right now, and a lot on superintendent's plate, so other staff.
And I think that's exactly one of the, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why we really should look at board docs, because I think we do have the time, given, that I agree, I don't want to overburden Kathy. I think it's going to be an adjustment. I think it's ultimately going to make things a lot easier, but it is going to be an adjustment, and I think we have to be cognizant of that. And I do think it's worth looking at board docs, both their pro and their light or LT or whatever, the other version that probably is more comparable cost-wise, just to see what we're getting. I know I looked at some school districts that have the new Agenda Online version up, and it's a little buggy looking. It's not quite right on my iPad, at least. So it's not, I'm concerned that Agenda Online might have, a lot of the answers we got were, yes, we're working on that,
Right.
we're going to add that. And they sound rather small on their staffing, and I just wonder if they're not quite there yet, and that maybe board docs is there. And that it would be, especially given the fact that it's not like we're trying to rush into this, given the timing of the superintendent search and that workload, why not get a presentation from them so that we can really make a better informed decision? Because just looking at different websites, it's very hard to, to look at these things without getting a presentation to us.
Yeah. Well, one thing I remember too, the woman who presented Agenda Online to us said the districts who ended up not getting it were the ones that decided to get it when they were in the middle of the superintendent search. And she said it really messed them up. So.
Well, right. I think we have to be cognizant of the timing, but I do think that this one, I'm just not sure that it's quite, like I said, when I was looking at things on my iPad, things are off the borders, I don't know if you had the same experience, if you had a chance to look at, I can't remember what school district I was looking at, they had like the old version of Agenda Online that you could click on and it would take you to their older documents. And then, so it wasn't even merged into like their new, it was going to be at some point, but it wasn't. And the new one, it was like things were hanging half off the page. So it was very hard to then like figure out where to click to get to agendas and documents and things. And I was like, it doesn't seem like they've quite got everything worked out yet. So why not? I would love to get a presentation from board docs, both on the upper level and on the lower level.
I really liked that we had it as a separate meeting.
Yeah.
We were able to
Yeah.
dedicate the time and the energy and kind of stay
Yeah,
solely
a lot of
focused on
separate
that. We do have a lot of separate meetings coming up, but, and I wanted to clarify, you know, I wasn't saying that we don't look at board docs between now and superintendent process. I was more thinking about implementing after the fact.
Right. I would
I
like to
think-
move forward.
Yeah, I think we
getting
can
a
move forward, I think
presentation set up.
there's work we can get done. We'll be meeting twice a week anyway, so it's really
Well,
nice.
that's
Just
just
throw
tag
a
it
third
on.
one in there,
There
it'll be
you
good.
Um,
So,
I've got
go
one
ahead.
question. Matt, do you know if Board Docs is willing to come and give us a presentation?
I don't,
We have to find out.
I've contacted them, but I haven't heard back.
Their website does say, you know, contact us for a free
It
demonstration.
depends
I
if
mean, I
they're
think they
in,
will.
if they have a representative in the area out here, because they are not in California.
Where they
Well, maybe we
based,
should tell them we'd like one when they're in the area, since I agree the timings, we don't wanna rush.
that's what we'll do, we'll reach out to them.
Good. And also, one more thing, I think we should ask school board members who use Agenda Online what they think of it, because I mean, we saw the thing, but there's nothing like asking somebody how you like it. Okay.
yeah.
Any comments from the public on this item? Okay, this item was on for discussion only. We've got an information item, and now we're on to communications. Any board members like to share their activities for the last prior weeks?
We have one more admin, right?
That's an information item.
Oh, sorry, it was information, sorry.
I'm just texting my ride.
Okay.
I got dropped off here today.
Joe, would you like to share?
I do.
I wanna say
Oh,
something.
yeah.
I was just looking for the right-
Quite a
Oh, I
pause
just
there.
want to let you guys know that Sarah and I met as the governance handbook
Oh, yeah.
subcommittee. So we had an initial meeting, and I think it's going to take some time for us to, you know,
We're
come
gonna
up
meet
with
again
something,
later
but we're
in
going to start, we're going to meet every 2 to 3 weeks. Is that sort of what we talked about? So I just wanted to keep you guys informed on
Thanks.
this.
Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was looking for my list of board activities, but I just wanted to say I did attend the solar meeting, and thank you to Stuart, and that I found that very interesting, is the one at OAS. I went to, actually I went to OAS and Del Rey, but I found those very interesting, and I just want to thank everybody who was involved for putting those on and arranging that. And other than that, I don't know, I'll just say as ledge rep, I went to the community college sort of annual meeting for the community, which I was invited to as a board member by our community college district, i.e. DVC, so I went over there, and interestingly enough, a lot of the big picture items in terms of, you know, I felt like it was very easy to follow. I thought I was having nothing in common and completely not understand that they talked about their funding from the state. They are in the same funding thing as K-12, you know, so they've got all very similar issues, and I thought it was very interesting. I was really glad I went, and encourage any of you to go next year. I guess they have these meetings once a year. So that's it.
I've mentioned a couple of them, but I just should, well, I'll comment on a number of meetings I've been to between the last board members and between the last board meetings since the last regular meeting. And just to say what we said several times tonight, the commitment of people to spend extra hours, staff, you know, that Stewart and Jim Manheim at a Wagner board meeting the other night, the Glorietta board meeting of parents. People are spending a lot of time in dialogue and committed to the schools, and it's just a great experience to go and see that and be a part of it. The other meeting to mention, I don't know, Matt, did we report on coordinating council? 'Cause I
No,
think that was-
I was thinking about that, but I think it'd be great if you did that.
Okay. All right, let me see if I didn't bring the agenda with me, but there was coordinating council meeting. Joe, you can help fill in the blanks, but one topic of conversation was the policy, the wellness policy. And Joe spoke at length on that, and there was dialogue from the parents, and I'd say that it's a very positive thing, yet another set of meetings, but they're good meetings for the schools to engage in dialogue on this topic. There's been so much on social media and in emails and whatnot, getting people in a room and talking about it in each of the schools, I think would be very valuable. Joe laid that out, and that was new news to, I think, a lot of the parents at the time. There was a little concern on the parents about the breadth of the conversation. Are we talking just about the kids, cupcakes at birthday parties? Are we talking about everything else? I think personally now, my personal view is, since that conversation is a genie already out of the bottle, we are talking about all those things, and those things are going to come up in the community meetings. And I think the principals are committed to taking what they hear, synthesizing, and bringing it back to the board. So there was good dialogue on that. There was discussion of the budget and good questions about the budget from parent club leadership. And then we touched another topic, Joe.
Test results?
There were test results, and
Correct.
a walkthrough of test results. It was a good evening, I thought.
I'll just add to that, just specifically at coordinating council, it was very robust, and in the past, coordinating council meetings can get very stilted in their conversation. Parents Club leadership gets a little reluctant to talk, and I really felt like Parents Club leadership was really engaged and sharing information, which is the whole point of coordinating council, freely, some unpopular opinions and some popular opinions, but it was all getting thrown out there, which I think is really what coordinating council is for, really beneficial. And as well, we got principals speaking up and sharing their experiences and their opinions, so it was a really, really good coordinating council meeting. I want to thank the superintendent, I want to thank Kathy, and I thought it was a really good information was presented, and it was a real robust dialogue, so very positive.
Matt, did anything come up about the equity? No, you haven't started that yet.
You foreshadowed it. Joe mentioned that that was going to come up to future coordinating council meeting, but the conversation didn't go there.
So Joe presented it so that people could start to prepare to have that discussion. Dr.
I'm
Jack?
not sure there's anything left to report.
Complete we are now?
Yeah, Kathy Marshall, I and some principals attended a Bayside planning meeting, which is our science program, Friday. Great meeting at the Lawrence Hall of Science. It was really great to see what part we are with this program in comparison to all the other member districts that are in this in the Bay Area. So it was a really good meeting. We learned a lot, and we also shared a lot. So we had a lot in common with it. So we're also trying to prepare to go through the next generation of science as well. More on that coming to you in the future. We are still working on completing the district goal draft statements. We've fallen a little bit behind based on some other activities going on, but we will be seeking input from our other groups on the draft goals and then bringing that to you hopefully at the next meeting. And yes, ditto on all the other input meetings. I was able to go to a couple of those and good meetings.
It was really nice for you too, Joe. Thank you.
Will those be on the next coordinating council meeting?
We were trying to schedule a special coordinating council deal with it, but we have failed in that attempt, so it'll probably be on the next coordinating council meeting.
Now, I have a question and a future agenda item is, Kathy, I'm assuming that Thursday's board meeting is a public meeting.
Correct, they'll be open and closed, it is a public meeting.
Right. I was talking to a parent club president who didn't know that we were having a meeting Thursday, so I was wondering when that was going to be noticed.
It's a special meeting, we have to at least give 24-hour notice, and we're almost done, I think, with the draft agenda.
The notice is going out tomorrow.
Excellent,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah.
And I'd like to get air conditioning conditioning on a future agenda.
Yeah, it's on.
Even,
Yeah, and I think Jason had said something about looking at alternative options on the
Yeah.
cooling or
Yeah.
something along that.
yeah, I'd like
We've
to.
had some study on it, and I think it might be nice to do it when the consultants are back, because they could give us some feedback, if that makes sense.
I have a future agenda item, but I can't remember if it's, I didn't see it on the list,
Sure.
but maybe it's there already. I would like to get an update on math instruction at OAS and, course,
That is
planned
on the list.
course offerings for next
Oh,
school year.
okay.
Try to stay on top of that. I have that whole thing.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I have one too, and this is related to what Carol said a minute ago, in terms of the future superintendent search meetings. I think it would be good if we post those on our website where we have the superintendent search information. You know, in addition to, yes, we'll have a public notice on the school board page, but, you know, just meeting notice with the date.
And I've got some
The
numbers on
time
that,
and
maybe that's
place.
something that we can talk about during our plan, making the most appropriate
Yeah.
talk, which I think
Yeah,
we need to
yeah.
have a real discussion
That-
about
that's
it,
on-
and maybe that.
It's
would
on the
be
agenda,
some
it's something we're gonna talk
discussion.
about.
Yeah.
Is the communications piece around the search.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything else, Sarah?
No, that was all. Thank you.
Okay. Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, we are going to adjourn this meeting in memory of Miss Patricia Dinkenspiel, who was an OUSD board member from 1973 to 1986. So we remember her as we adjourn.
It's the year I left for this.
And she lived through it.
That's right, a long time.
Wow. Mhm.
So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Steve. I have to tell you, thank you so much for returning, Jack. I didn't even realize I had left.